Good afternoon. I'm Mayor Tom Barrett, and I want to report on some of the developments that have occurred since the last time I spoke to you 2 days ago. As you know, yesterday we had another difficult day in the city of Milwaukee with several crime incidents. Earlier today, our Milwaukee police were involved in an officer-related shooting on the north side at a Walgreens that took place during a robbery. My understanding is that the individual who was shot by the police is still alive. Is in serious condition, but that occurred during an armed robbery where the police were responding to that incident. Earlier today, I spoke with a number of other elected officials and appointed officials about the need for more engagement and involvement, and was met by a very warm response and an interested response by the State Attorney General, District Attorney Chisholm, U.S. Attorney Santel, Police Chief Flynn, among others, who recognize that what we have to do is to work more closely together. Chief Judge Kremers was also part of the Community Justice Council meeting that we had earlier this afternoon. We discussed the gun court, looking at the data from the gun court to see what's going on there. The police chief talked about the trends we have seen in two critical areas. One area is the area of stolen cars, because we've seen an increase in stolen cars. The second, and more timely, of course, are the homicides, the recent homicides that have occurred here in the city of Milwaukee. We discussed the issue of resources. District Attorney Chisholm was there. He was, again, very engaged and willing and working with us closely because of the recognition that this level of violence is totally unacceptable at any time, but it's a level of violence that we have not seen in the city of Milwaukee in the first quarter of the year since 2000. That was the last time we had the number of homicides that we are looking at now, back in 2000. But a number of the steps that we are going to be taking, the U.S. Attorney Jim Santel indicated that the ATF will be assigning agents to focus on street-level gun crime in Milwaukee. He's also interested in working on federal prosecutions of carjacking cases as well. What we have seen in the first 3 months of the year is we've seen a lot of car thefts that involve cars that were stolen, but were stolen because had been parked and keys were in the car. As the weather warms up, fewer people are going to be leaving their keys in the car. Presumably, they're not going to be leaving the keys in the car to warm up the car, at least. But there's a concern of making sure that individuals who are involved in car thefts, or probably more significantly, carjackings, if that occurred, that they are dealt with very, very severely. I will, as I indicated the other day, be directing $2 million in 2014 unspent Milwaukee Police Department accounts to enhance deployment, investigation, and charging of gun crimes. This work will be done in concert with the District Attorney, the U.S. Attorney, and hopefully the State Attorney General. Again, I had a good conversation with the new State Attorney General today about more engagement from his office in dealing with the issue of street crime here in the city of Milwaukee. I was heartened by the response of all the individuals I talked to. I think they all recognize that this is an issue where we need to work together. We need to work cooperatively and make sure that we have the resources. I have touched on these issues, and I want to touch on them again. The need for immediate law changes. As you are all aware, Wisconsin legalized the concealed carry of guns and other weapons in 2011, I think the year was. Carrying a concealed gun without a state-issued concealed carry license is a misdemeanor for the first offense and for any subsequent offenses. What I need to see, and what I think is important, is that we make sure that felons, that it's a felon for carrying a gun without a permit, and certainly in sentencing that has to be considered. There has to be meaningful disincentives to illegally carry a gun. Right now, we do not believe, the police chief does not believe, that there are meaningful disincentives in this state for illegally carrying a gun. And there has to be certainty in sentencing for felons charged in gun crimes. We have to change the calculus so that individuals know that they are going to be doing some serious time if they commit a serious crime with a gun. That's something that is very, very important to us. My view is the men and women who are working for the Milwaukee Police Department are doing a phenomenal job right now. Again, earlier this week I talked about the number of guns that they have already taken off the streets of the city of Milwaukee this year. But this isn't just a law enforcement issue. This is about the character of those individuals who are committing a crime. What we have seen over the last 72 hours, we've seen a man who totally lost control when an individual, a 2-year-old individual, was killed by an automobile. Later that evening, a 45-year-old man got tired of seeing 2 people arguing and shot one of the people. Yesterday or the day before, there was an incident where a brother saw a woman who had been seeing another brother. Pow, somebody's dead. So these are oftentimes situations where people just lose control, and what we can do is we can do everything we can to have adequate police coverage out there, but we need to have the churches, we need to have the families, we need to have the community groups, we need to have the support groups really deal with the values of some of the people in our community and deal with those issues so that we don't have this level of violence. But this is something I take very seriously. The police chief, who I've talked to several times just in the last day, along with the chief judge, the district attorney, the U.S. attorney, the state attorney general, we all understand that this is an important issue.
Mayor, you talked about a number of ideas on how to deal with people who commit crimes. But the outrage in the community right now is, how can we stop these crimes, prevent these crimes? There was a woman last night at the vigil for the 2 boys, and she's angered and upset that Milwaukee's being known as Kill Walkie, and she's worried about raising her 2-year-old son here in Milwaukee. What would you tell her about how safe is this city? And she's very concerned about it.
Well, I don't think it's helpful for the media to take that approach, because I think the media understands what's going on here. What's going on here is we have individuals who have lost control. And are there issues in this city for public safety? Yes, there are. Those issues most often occur when there are drugs involved, when there are gangs involved, when there are illegal guns involved. That's what we know. And we know that the vast majority of individuals who are involved in this serious crime are people who have criminal records dealing with other people who have criminal records. And I don't think it's fair to the city to try to evoke fear unnecessarily.
Mayor, on the opposite end of that question would be, in 2008, we started the year off about as violently as this, 31 homicides. By the end of the year, we had 71 homicides, probably the lowest number of homicides we've had in the modern era. So, and so this year, or last year, we keep comparing this year to last year, 17 homicides. We ended the year with 100 homicides, 30 more than the year we started off with, 31. So I guess what I'm asking you is, I know you're supposed to comfort us and comfort the community, but these are acts of random violence, and random things occur in clusters. That's the way random things go. So is it a mistake to start building public policy around a cluster of random events?
Well, I agree with the premise of your question, that these are random events. And again, they are driven by people who have lost control. The biggest increase, my understanding from the police data, and I'll have to confirm this, that we have seen this year is incidents that involve people who know each other. So again, are there going to be incidents that are random? Yes. Are those prevalent? No. The ones that we have seen this year have been ones where people know each other and they lose control. And so we have to keep that in mind.
Which are the most difficult to police?
Which are the most difficult to police. Again, if you have a personal relationship, and again, earlier this week we had another one where it's a personal relationship, it's domestic violence, there's no way we're going to have police officers at every kitchen table in this city. And I don't think there's a person who expects us to have that. But what we have to do is we have to deal with the mindset of individuals. And what we have seen is we have seen an increase in non-fatal shootings. And the question is that related to changes in the law? I think that that's a legitimate question. We have seen the last 3 years increases in non-fatal shootings in this city. That corresponds in time to when the state changed the law in terms of carrying guns. And we have to have that public policy conversation. Ironically, some of the supporters of that law have said, well, where's the data? Well, they know where the data is. The data is there, but by law, individuals, the media, is not allowed to see that data. So you're in a situation where you have to disprove a negative because there's no transparency in that law to allow that information to come out. That's something where you're asking where the media can help. That's something where the media could help to say, why don't we have this information? Let's have an honest, open debate over that. But one of the things, and you mentioned last year, for example, The first 3 months of last year, we had the lowest number of homicides that we have had in the past 15 years, which, of course, this year when we have a higher number makes the difference look much more dramatic. I don't want to get mired in the numbers because we have had a problem the last several days. There's no question about that, and it's something that I take very, very seriously.
Again, Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett talking about what he called another difficult day in the city of Milwaukee, also saying that essentially the cavalry's coming in. The district attorney, the U.S. attorney, Milwaukee police are going to start to work together. The ATF is going to get agents on the streets of Milwaukee working gun crimes in the city. They will also have federal prosecution in the works of carjackings in the city of Milwaukee. Auto theft, carjacking has been a recurring problem over the past 4 or 5 months in the city.
And again, as you mentioned, he also wanted to talk about some legal changes that needed to happen along with CCW, and there having to be more disincentives for people carrying guns illegally. We'll have much more of that story coming up at 10, but let's switch gears.